So first of all, I'm not a fan of Iran. Everyone knows that, right? But you're talking about Iran that's engaged in a war with America. How many times you find Americans saying, kill those Muzzies or destroy Iraq or all kind? That's sentiment is gonna be there in a war, especially when they say these statements. They're talking obviously about American governments. They're talking about regime. They're not talking about Tom, Dick, and Harry, who's
They're talking about a regime that supported a corrupt Shah.
Yeah, exactly. Who was trying to exploit natural resources of the people. I'm not saying I agree with the Shah, or Shah or Ayatollah. I have my own issues with them. But to make it sound like they're just screaming death to America for no reason, and there's no reason why anybody would hate America, it's either it's being naive or it's being disingenuous. And you should know that living in Iran, they realize what the Americans were doing. That was the whole reason why. People don't realize this, but the Ayatollah himself did not create this revolution. There was a green revolution that happened. He hijacked the revolution later, but the revolution was an organic one that happened because there was pushback against the Shah spending, nationalizing and spending money of the people. Right? Like they removed Mossadegh, they put in the Shah and all the stuff, right? They did that part. And so people were fed up with what the Shah was doing. And then that was the perfect opportunity for Khomeini to come in. By the way, who had the blessing from the CIA in Paris. He met with them before he landed in Iran. They thought, this is a regime that's going to be kind of like Saudi Arabia, religious, but they're cool with us, right? But obviously Khomeini didn't follow that path. But again, this was by design. The Americans allowed it to happen. So now you're saying that when they realize how bad the Americans were, they're cursing the American government. Big deal. That happens everywhere in the world. Yeah. The Americans were cursing the Vietnam, the Chi Com, the Viet Cong. Everybody's cursing everybody in war. How is that any different?
I see what you're saying.
All right, let's go.
Continue.
Great point.
That are defending Iran, and you hate Israel, and Israel's the problem, and America's the problem. No problem. Iran's had control of their country for a long time, since 1979. Why is it that their misery index is 61 right now? Okay. Why is it their misery index has doubled in the last 6 years? That's inflation and unemployment. Why is it that their corruption index in the world is 149 out of 180, while the world average score is 43? The Middle East countries average is 34. The North Africa average is 34. Iran's average is 24. How much corruption is there in Iran? And by the way, for some of you guys are like, no.
Pause there. That all may be true, but you conveniently forgot the fact. Again, this is not in defense of Iran. Everyone here knows I'm not an Iranian fan, right? I have my issue with their foreign policy in the Arabia and the Middle East. However, the bottom line is that don't you think that the blockade and sanctions on Iran have a reason to have an impact on that stuff? The fact that you blocked their ability to trade, their IMF loans, everything under the sun, you block even parts for airplanes they can use, things like that. Don't you think it has an impact on the quality of life living there? And if we're going to do stat comparison, America's been on top for a very long time. Why is the average IQ dropping? Why is the average lifespan dropping? Why is obesity rising? Why is depression rising? Why do we have high inflation? Why do we have all that in America? The same thing could be asked to you.
Yeah. Our birth rate's declining.
Yeah. So many things like this, right? You could turn the thing around. This is just not a good argument. It seems like either, like I said, either he's being disingenuous or he's just stupid about how this thing works. Continue, play it.
They're definitely not the biggest exporters of terrorism. That is America. That is not Iran. That's not what they're doing. Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah. You want me to continue? What do you want me to do with Iran, what they're doing? You think they wake up in the morning saying they love America? No. By the way, history for you. You know what's the first country ever that said death upon America? It was North Korea in the 50s. Do you know what's the second country in the world that ever said death upon America? It was Iran. You know under who? Khomeini. When? January of 1979, when Shah fell. And by the way, for those of you that say, so what's your solution for Iran? Because I love the people of Iran, not the politics. I love the people of Iran. You want to know what the number 2 country, second country ever, in 1953, that announced Iran as Israel as a sovereign state? You know, it was the second leading Muslim country in the world in 1953 to actually announce Israel as a sovereign state. It was Iran. You know under who? the Shah of Iran, when Iran used to be at peace, when the Middle East used to be at peace, and he got along with Israel, even though he didn't trust the Zionists who ran the media in America, and he called them out all the time in many interviews with Wallace, and he's always like, I don't trust those guys, the New York Times, the this, the that. But he still had a relationship with them, and Iran never got up saying, Marik Bad America, death upon America. That anger and rage came from a different place.
So
why?
what?
I don't know.
Wait,
now let me continue with the people that say.
So what? People say death to America inside of America.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? How is that indicative of a foreign policy? People, I mean, look, we understand that in the public-facing politics, countries badmouth each other all the time. It's part of the optics, right? It really matters what happens behind closed doors. And if Iran, I'm not saying Iran is an angel, but there's certainly more damage they could have done in that region, and they could do a lot more things to harm America than just simply screaming death to America.
That's true.
Right? There's a lot more they could potentially do if they want to really make it a tough time. It feels like to me this is he's appealing to an emotional argument. Oh my God, how dare they say death to America? How can you? Oh my God, I'm so insulted. And look, I get it. If you're an American, that doesn't sound nice. But the reality is that really a threat to America? Is that really a threat to any? Does anybody here in the morning wake up and oh my God, Iran said death to America? They chant this.
It's like when white people hear the word cracker, like they just shrug it off.
Yeah.
You know, like okay, so
and
you know, and like. You're freaking America, dude. You're number one. You know, you're number one in terms of military superpower, right? You're the strongest country in the world.
Another thing, like how many times has Putin said stuff about America? How many times has Kim Jong-un Rocket Man said about America? Like, who cares?
Well, when you go to Iran, you see most people behaving like Americans.
Yeah.
That society is for the most part. We've had many guests on the past who've talked about living in Iran. They say that most people like dress
Secular,
Western.
yeah.
They're Western.
Yeah.
They have Western values.
So laugh at those women.
So he's contradicting himself. So when he saw Death to America when he was young, but now he's saying that he's not talking about the people of Iran. Well, what's he saying then? Because remember how early in the video he's saying that I love the
Iranian people.
I love the Iranian people, but he's saying with my two eyes I saw Death to America. So what are you saying?
Like you saw the Shah in person? You saw Ayatollah in person? Like you're hanging out in the quarters of the Ayatollah?
You only saw the Ayatollah saying Death to America? There was large crowds that you were saying that you saw that were yelling Death to America.
Yeah.
But now you're saying that the Iranian people are not who this is directed to. Like he's contradicting himself.
It's just, you know what it feels like? It feels like he's just really trying to amp this personality he has about being America first and trying to justify it, but he's not really thought through this argument. Listen, if you want to put America first, you would say something like defund Israel, defund Saudi Arabia, defund Egypt. Let's not send food aid to North Korea. I mean, you would defund all of it. Right? You would say, stop this stuff. Let's build homes in America. Let's build roads. Let's bring our servicemen back. Right? Let's not fight Israel's war for them. Let's not get involved in NATO and provoke Russia. Let's have a more isolationist approach in a sense that to some degree, obviously, we have to be involved. But, you know, we have a role there. But let's take a step back. Let's de-escalate the climate in America right, in the world right now. That's putting America first. Putting America first means, hey, you know what? Don't worry about Iran right now. Worry about the liberal terrorists you have inside who are trying to force, a video of putting on a condom on a banana in front of your 5-year-old child. Like that's a war that's more important to us, right? A war about, saving your children, protecting your children, the right for you to practice your religion. All these things, these are real things that put Americans first. How about you cry about the Second Amendment? Why can't I buy an AK-47 or AR-15 in Chicago anymore now? Because they put a gun ban from the state level? Like, isn't that something more about America first? Like, I feel more threatened about that than Iran saying, Mar, Bar, whatever, America. I don't give a what they say, dude. Who cares? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just look at what Iran did to Israel. We know they're not really meaning they're not a dumb nation that's going to go beyond reasonable doubt. Reasonable responses, right? Mm-hmm. Like, they could have done much more they could have launched a bunch of ballistic missiles and ICBMs at Israel, but they're calculated. They also know there's a game to play, right? They're never going to attack America directly. Are you out of your mind? That would be the end of everything they want to hold on to power. Yeah. Why would they relinquish their power? Like the same reason why the little rocket man in North Korea can point an ICBM at Guam. He'll never launch that thing out. He'll be out of office. I mean, he'll be dead in a few hours. Like this is unrealistic.
Under his breath, what he's trying to say is that there's an Islamic force that is propelling all this hate, right? There is plenty of good Saudis, plenty of good Iranians who are exemplify Western values.
He always says that.
But what he's not saying, or maybe he will say later, at least, is that the hatred for America, for Judeo-Christian values, is from Islam, right? And well, let's just play more of it, and maybe he comes to it.
Well, the part with Pierce Morgan, it's a $300 billion U.S. has given to Israel. That's adjusted to inflation. It's really $150 billion since 1948, 76 years, of which most was given before 1980. Do you know why? Because on January 1st of 1980, you know what Jimmy Carter said? We're no longer giving you a lot of aid. He did what Biden does. He brought it all the way down to $200 million at the time, okay? Biden, Carter, very similar. And it was shambles in the world. Carter, Biden, shambles in the world, similarity, case study. Watch what happened from there. Do you know from 1980 till today, U.S. has given Israel $3 to $4 billion per year, okay? Military aid. Economical aid, it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't even think they've given any money, but anything in the last 15 years, you can go look it up for yourself and see where that stands. And again, let's stay on this because some of you guys are going to be like, yeah, but what's your point? We're still helping them out. Okay. Well, you want me to help you out if you wake up every morning and you say death upon my country? Why would I help you out? And by the way, who is U.S.'s number one enemy in the world that caused, COVID, and still hasn't been held accountable for? Do you know what that country's name is? Yes, it's called China. Do you know who gave Iran $300 to $400 billion for the next 25 years? China. So you want me to be allies and friendly to you?
Pause. So who cares? We also have $300 to $400 billion trade deals with China. We make money hand over fist with China. So should we X ourselves off too? Are we anti-American now because we take goods from China? Like, how stupid is this? Yeah. Secondly, okay, so he's trying to downplay $4 billion a year. Okay, but the point in principle exists. Can that $4 billion be put back to America as America first? Of course it could. $4 billion to, let's say, to reinvest in infrastructure like bridges in Baltimore so they don't come crumbling down. Could that be better use of money?
I think so.
Right. And we're talking about $4 billion in actual aid money, right? We're not talking about the billions in investment and research, like in terms of the Iron Dome, Goliath sling, right? Things like this they do. Or, for example, the research we put into having Israel build a new canal, the Ben Gurion Canal, where America was exploring using nuclear weapons in the Negev to blow it up, carve out canals in Egypt. I'm sorry, in the Negev in Israel, right? That research doesn't happen for free. We're not doing it out of the goodness of our heart. We pay people to do that, right? We pay that stuff. Not only that, we also put strain on our allies that we don't have a problem with. Like Saudi Arabia, like the other Arab states, it causes strain with them because this is an issue, the Palestine-Israel issue. We pay for that somehow. Like, did they not forget that the Palestine issue caused an oil crisis in the 70s? That didn't happen? That's a result of our relationship with Israel. So you might just be counting the $4 billion, but it's far more than that. It's caused far more damage than that over the course of decades. Bottom line is this, and this is the honest to God truth. America is more unsafe, and that is a direct correlation with how much they support Israel. The more support for Israel is, the more unsafe America is, and Americans are in the world. And so if you're thinking about America first, you need to reconsider what really keeps Americans safe.
But isn't America first to them? Like what you're talking, when they see that, they think, oh, this is just people, activists talking. To them, this is what needs to be done in order to preserve America in the long future. We need to take hits. We need to have monetary hits because those people who are on the ground, these activists, they don't know what it takes to be a president.
So let's talk about that, right? It's funny, too, because recently, right, remember that OBL letter went famous?
Yeah.
Everyone's saying, look, they just want America outside of our land. They're supporting the Zionist state. Even the first ever terrorist attack or terror attack by a Middle Easterner happened when in America? Anybody know? Do you remember good old Bobby Kennedy? Sirhan? Yeah. By the way, a Christian Palestinian, not a Muslim one.
Oh, yes.
And what was that over? Israel and Palestine.
Yep.
All these groups, whether you look at Al-Qaeda, you look at ISIS, you look at any of these groups, Jamaat Islamiyya, all of it relates to American presence in the Middle East and how it works allyship with Israel. All of it does. I argue that America's unholy alliance with Israel has made Americans and America far more unsafe. And the less support we give to Israel, the more safer we become. We see periods where Americans generally are, we're doing better. We don't have too many terror attacks, whatever, blah, 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 blah. We're appealing to our nations. Fine. But I'm saying the reason why there is a hotbed of terrorism and resistance and rebellion in that region is largely based on America's attitude and foreign policy towards that region, and it's heavily aligned with the interest of Israel.
No, it has to. That's what I'm saying. It has to be, though, because let's just say that, look, Israel needs to exist for America. Like you just said previously, if there was no Israel, what type of unity would happen amongst the Muslims? It's a possibility that Israel's existence also is preventing the unity of the sleeping giant.
So I get that, right? But does America have unity? Is America doing fine with Russia existing and China existing? Yes. A caliphate can exist and America can be doing what they do, right? They can do that. They still exist with Russia. They coexist with China, who are all threats to them, right? But the simple question is, if you're America first, does supporting Israel protect the interest of Americans? And the short answer is no. Not economically, not from a safety perspective, not from a foreign policy perspective.
But this helps us understand, look, politically, they're not really concerned about the Americans.
That now you're getting my point.
Yeah, they're not.
This America first thing is nonsense.
It's very much.
It doesn't mean it's not true.
It's a facade.
It's a facade.
It's a smokescreen.
Now it
never mattered.
Yeah, now we're getting to the gist of it, right?
Yeah.
These are slogans. Like, for example, I'm pro-life, but I want to have a death penalty. Right?
Isn't this crazy? Don't you find this crazy that now is coming out to light? But, dude, Muslims have been talking about this for the past 20, 30 years.
Right, but
But
hold on. The average American doesn't see it.
The average American doesn't see it.
I mean, now they're beginning to see it, but the conservative, no. Because, again, this is why his default is what? Well, we're Judeo-Christian.
Yeah.
So it's not about America first. It's about your Judeo-Christian values, and somehow you think that that's why you have to support Israel.
No, that's right. Look.
So let's be honest about it. Let's make it a religious thing then. Let's not make it about America. Let's not make it about white or black or anything. It's a religious thing for you. You guys are religious zealots that are willing to murder babies and children in order to believe in some kind of whacked out prophecy.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to.
No, and you know what I like? What we're saying here, look, if you guys get a chance to, it might be towards the middle of the Joe Rogan podcast where he interviews Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson very smoothly just made everybody believe that there's no such thing as democracy. It doesn't exist. And he does it actually very eloquently and almost like nonchalant, where he discredits it. And you're like, wow, this is like what people have been thinking all along. But finally, at this huge platform, they're talking about it.
Yeah.
Look, Joe Rogan's platform is much bigger than news platforms. And when he has Tucker Carlson on, I think he already has like 5 million views or something in like whatever amount of hours. But that's the reality. This whole facade and this love story of democracy and Americans and America first and patriotism, they're all fake. None of them are real.
Yeah.
It's all a facade. You can have certain rights if you talk about the right things. If you talk about the wrong things, you have no rights. Right. And that, like, he talks about like, Tucker Carlson said something really interesting. He said this before. If you make up lies about the government doesn't care. But if you have some truth of what actually is happening and you talk about it, then they're going to take you out.
He's spot on.
Yeah, they'll take you out. Like, you can make up. They don't care if you make up lies about them. You could have a blowhorn.
Yeah.
You could announce.
Look what they did to Julian Assange.
Exactly. But if you tell the truth, that's where it hurts, right? And it depends. And they'll make examples out of people. He was talking about even like his signal was hacked. I think it's a much must listen to, is because everything Muslims have been saying for the past 30 years, people are understanding it now.
Yeah. And now we're understanding that why the whole America First program, and we talked about this when we were talking about VVAC in past episodes. The whole slogan in itself is false on its face. It's wrong. It makes no sense. It's a contradiction to what America is all about. It's completely antithetical to what they're all about, because America is the main benefactor of all the investments that they do all across the world.
And they don't actually care. It's true. The capitalist mindset will not want you to think about your own civilians. It's not a part of it. It's about getting rich. Like, you're not a part of the equation. You're a part of the equation because they need your support as a number, right?
Right.
But the reality of this is that nationalism is a drug. It is a type of drunkenness that people are on. And if you sell them nationalism, you could convince them of anything. They can be the smartest and most intelligent people. They're like, yeah, America first. Dude, it was never America first. You're just a number. As long as you benefit them and they're making money off you, that's all they care about. They don't care about you as a person. Yeah. Why would they care about you?
And there's another thing I wanted to mention too. He also conveniently leaves out that all security experts in America say that the country that engages in the most amount of economic espionage against America is not Russia, it's not China,
That's true.
It's Israel. Okay?
That's
and
crazy.
then when they're asked about it, they say, oh, allies spy on each other all the time.
Yeah,
We
I
spy
remember that.
on this and that. Yeah, right. Imagine if you found, like, for example, they're blaming China now for TikTok, and they just recently passed the bill now that TikTok has to be either be sold or banned in America, right? Why? Because TikTok is a Chinese spying tool,
Yeah.
right? But now Israel can spy on you, but guess what? We reward them with $4 billion a year. Good job, Israel. Spy on us. Make us look dumb.
No, everybody's seeing right through it though now, Mort. Everybody knows what's
I
happening.
hope they are.
Nobody trusts anything anymore. And everybody is now, like, that's why I was talking about Bassem Youssef. He's actually pretty spot on about a few things. He's been having lots of interviews.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the interview with that guy, that Daisy dude from the UK. I forgot his name, bro. What
channel?
I sent you the clip.
Was that LBC or what?
No, not LBC. LBC he had like yesterday.
He was on the Lex Friedman podcast.
He's on Lex Friedman
It
podcast,
was
which is a
great.
very
The
good
one he
podcast.
did
That was
over
a
there. I like
great
that one.
podcast.
Did you see that one, Sim?
But
I didn't
the
see it.
dilemma is happening with Bassem Youssef now. He's blowing up real fast now, and he's
Sheikh
getting
Amr
lots of
is
attention.
afraid for his life now.
No, I'm not afraid. No,
okay.
no, he knows what he's getting himself into.
Make dua for him.
Yeah, may Allah give him hidayah and not allow him to be a secular anymore.
Oh, you think he's not Muslim?
No, I didn't say he's not
Oh,
Muslim. He
okay.
identifies as a Muslim. He just believes in secular Islam. But anyways, that's just beside the point. He's doing some great work, right? And we should take that for what it is and give proper respect. But one thing I'm realizing about this guy, number one, he's getting lots of popularity, obviously because he's doing stand-up comedy in English. He's been on these news outlets. He's being smart about it. But one interesting thing is that he convinced the people of this, the clip that I sent you, that all of this is not worth it. And there's a whole bunch of people that are behind him on this. And it's dangerous is that everything that we're saying is we're addressing authority and power. The people will move, but authority's not going to do anything about it. They're going to continue what they have to with Israel. They're going to say that they're reprimanding Israel, but making these deals with them, obviously for optics and showing people that, hey, America's actually listening to us. But in reality, they're not going to listen. And Israel will not be reprimanded. If anything, Netanyahu will get a the Peace Prize, because if he stops now, they say, look, he stopped. So he's going to be rewarded for stopping early, because of less killing that he did. But if he was to stop the war right now, he's actually going to get a Nobel Peace Prize, right? So he's like, there's no way out of this. He's like, I'm not being nihilistic, but nothing's going to happen about this. There's nothing that we can do. We can just talk about it, raise awareness. I'm a comedian. I observe things, and I just talk about the obvious, and those obvious things just happen to be really funny because it doesn't make sense. So that's why he said my comedy is based off of. But in reality, there's a lot of people that are actually not feeling that way. They're like, we're doing all this, but the government's going to make their own deals. They're going to lie to us that we're reprimanding whoever, and they're still making billions of dollars of deals. So so there's nothing that's actually going to happen anymore. We're just going to keep on complaining, but eventually that's going to stop too. And then that brings us to a standstill. What is the human race going to do now with Palestine when they all give up hope that we're just going to keep on protesting? And as believers in Tawheed, we have a different idea and agenda. But the average human being, like, what is their condition going to be? Like, how much mistrust, after all the mistrust that still exists now, in about a year from now, how much will that be